Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the D-Pad Discourse, a late edition of the D-Pad Discourse. This edition will be for the week that started on July 20th, 2014. Alright, well, EA delayed some games last week. Last week news came out that EA delayed Battlefield Hardline as well as Dragon Age Inquisition. Dragon Age will be coming out in November, and Battlefield will be coming out early next year, 2015. Overall, I think this, if they needed to do this to make the games better, then it was a good move, especially after all the mess that happened with Battlefield 4. It was a really messy launch, and the game had a ton of problems, and the game wasn't fixed until months after it released. And it was a pretty bad showing on these on the new consoles, the PS4 and the Xbox One. So it's good if they're doing quality checking to make sure everything's smooth and fine when the game's released. And also at the same time, I think that a lot of that, well, I shouldn't say a lot of it, but part of it has to do with the fact that the games are slated for October, and October is such a packed month already in terms of game releases. There's a ton of stuff coming out that month. I think I want like 6 or 7 games in October alone. So that's a packed month, and I could understand if they, kind of push the games away from October into months, future months, so that the games will get some more room, get their own spotlight, because October is just so packed with games that it's going to be, hard to give those games their own attention alongside, competing with other games. So overall, this is a good move. We'll see how the games are when they finally release, see how well they do in terms of critical reception. But if they, if they did this due to quality as well as, trying to move away from the October releases, then this was a really smart move in my opinion. Alright, well, Destiny beta ended over this weekend on Sunday, and there's been a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot of controversy, but there's been a decent amount of controversy due to the Bungie devs saying that the Xbox One and the PS4 version of Destiny will be similar, and a lot of people assume that means complete parity. Overall, I think that this is really silly. The game is good, and it's funny because when people were playing the Destiny Alpha on the PS4, people said that the game looked great and that they can't wait for the full game. But now that news came out that the Xbox One version of Destiny will be running in 1080p, the same resolution as the PS4 version, all of a sudden people are assuming that, oh, you guys won't be doing, or excuse me, the Destiny for the PS4 won't look better than the Xbox One version. And overall, I just, like I said before, I think it's silly, and I don't understand it, because for one, not all multi-platform games will be of the same difference when it comes to quality gap. Like in the previous gens, the different multiplats back then, some multiplats were better on certain systems than others. There was a big gap, but then with other multiplats, there wasn't that big of a gap. It was a small gap, or it wasn't any difference at all. And I don't see why that should be something to get angry about if the game itself is still good and if the game itself looks good. And it's funny because you have some people, it's not a lot. I think it's pretty much a vocal minority, but you have some people saying that the Xbox One is holding back the PS4 version of Destiny, and it's like, do you guys realize that Destiny is also coming out to the PS3 and the 360 consoles with 15 times less RAM than the Xbox One and PS4? So the Xbox One is holding back the PS4 version of Destiny, but the 360 and PS3 aren't? Are you kidding me? Really? It's just so silly. Overall, a lot of people seem to like Destiny beta. Seems like it's going to get good reviews when it comes out, and people who are really interested in the game should like it, and not people, and the people who want to get involved into these console wars and all this stuff, want to feel superior because they bought the quote-unquote better system, which is a better system for themselves, is silly to me. I mean, it's just silly. Just focus on the game. Is it a good game? Yeah? Alright, well, what is there to complain about, But, people are just silly. They'll fight over anything now with these silly console wars, but I just couldn't can't believe these arguments right now when it comes to Destiny and the parity nonsense. Alright, and 10 off this edition of the D-Pad Discourse. There was a recent PS4 update, and the PS4 update was for stability improvements, and there will be a future update for the PS4 for 3D Blu-ray playback. Now, while these updates are good, you know, updates to improve the system are always good. At the same time, it's getting to the point now where people are really starting to wonder about the PS4 suspend and resume feature. And this feature was stated back in February 2013 as a launch feature for the PS4, you know, a feature that will be on the system at launch. But it still isn't there yet. And a lot of people are wondering, you know, what's going on. You know, there hasn't really been any detailed updates about suspend and resume. And while it's not a completely game-changing feature on the console, it is a good feature to have. As someone who owns the Xbox One, I really like using suspend and resume for single-player games. So, you know, you can turn the system off, well, you know, put it in standby, and then come back, and, you know, your game will be exactly where you left it. You know, you don't have to go through menus or save screens for, you know, memory purposes. You know, going to your saves, going in the hard drive, and getting out your saves, and then waiting for the game to load to get back into the game. You know, it's just, the game is just there as soon as you turn on the system, and I love it. It's a very convenient feature. And, you know, this, I'm not complaining about the PS4 not having it due to, you know, the feature being convenient. I'm complaining because Sony said that this feature will be on the PS4 on launch, but the feature still isn't there, and that's tacky, especially when they were going all gung-ho about the feature, you know, saying how great the feature will be, and it's still not there. And, you know, just imagine if Apple stated that the next iPhone would have, you know, a certain feature, and then when the iPhone releases, you know, it's not there. But on top of that, like 6 months after the iPhone's release, the new iPhone's release, the feature still isn't there. You know, just imagine how much criticism Apple will get due to that. And due to, you know, that reason, and just, you know, me thinking that products should have what they were advertised to have at launch, you know, I just overall think it's wrong. And hopefully Suspend and Resume will be on the system this year. If Suspend and Resume isn't on the PS4 this year, then that will be just pitiful, and you know, Sony will have a lot of explaining to do outside of just, you know, them saying, oh, okay, we had problems with this, so we had to wait to put it on. Especially since, as I said before, Sony was pretty gung-ho about Suspend and Resume during the PS4 reveal back in February 2013, and the feature still isn't there. So I really think that Sony, you know, needs to hurry up. You know, the other features that they added to the PS4 are great, but, you know, focus on adding what you said will be there at launch at this point. And that's what they should be doing, and hopefully they'll do it by this year, but we'll see what happens. Alright, and that was another edition of the D-Pad Discourse. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry for this edition being kind of late. I had a really busy weekend, so I couldn't do the D-Pad Discourse during the normal day that I usually release the discourses, but hopefully you guys aren't that mad about it, and hopefully you guys will come back next week for another edition. Until then, Brad Davis saying goodbye, everybody.